everybody. This is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing better than I'm doing right now. Actually, I've been kind of sick over the last week or so, just getting over something, and now my voice is still kind of hoarse, if you will. I really kind of wish that it sounded more like Teddy Pendergrast or Isaac Hayes, but never sort of seems to turn out that way. So you have to forgive me for my voice, but this is something that I really wanted to talk about for a while, and it's something that I want to kind of expand on by something that I watched this morning when I woke up. Dustin, the sports card dad, had on a really great take on shill bidding. And if you guys haven't seen that video or subscribe to Dustin's channel, go ahead and do that because he's got some really interesting stuff. And I always enjoy hearing what he has to say. Not just because he's my friend, but because he has different insights that I might. And so, that's the one thing about sports card content, if you will, is that uh, people have different insights that you might not think about. And so I always like to um, get a different view or viewpoint from other people. Uh, and that's one of the reasons why I do check out other videos as well and content creators in any event. Uh, his take on show bidding was interesting, and I really wanted to kind of expand on this for really kind of a while now. And in a few of my videos and in some of my articles, I've actually talked about auction houses, and I think this problem really kind of starts way back in I'd say 1972. 1972 is kind of an interesting year because it's the first recorded instance of. Sorry for the birds back there if you guys can hear them. They're chirping their beaks off. Anyway, 1972 is really kind of interesting because it is the first time that uh, you have a recorded instance of fraud in the hobby, and you you don't really see anything until maybe about 1981 or so. And I really kind of talk about 1981 as being a seminal year in the hobby for a few reasons. And I did a pretty decent article on 1981 as a an interesting year in the hobby. However, 1981 is the first year that you have Baseball Cards magazine, and the writers of that magazine were really the first ones, I think, to notice that there was a skyrocketing value of cards at the time, and it was really kind of shocking a lot of people. Now, I think obviously value is associated with price guides, and you can go back in our hobby. You can go back to like 1937 at least, and then definitely 1939, and obviously 1943 when you had the first auctions, um, and that was Charles Bray. So um, basically, what Charles Bray did was he gathered all the sales prices from his auctions and he gave them to Jefferson Burdick, who then tabulated what these cards were actually going for instead of how he was determining value prior to that, which really wasn't there wasn't really any scientific basis that I'm aware of. What Burdick was actually doing prior to Charles Bray's auctions was he was using the um, the stamp hobby to formulate what prices were going for, or what he thought maybe they should go for, but it wasn't a historic value. Um, and what I mean, actually, kind of that by the fact that um, he had a high and a low, but he didn't actually know what a lot of these cards, the rarity of them were at the time in the 1930s and 40s. So that's the difference between the two guys. uh, as prices got more, I guess, fixed um, through what people were paying for them, that's when you saw a spike in the prices. And the only difference that I can see is from 1953 to 19, I think 60 or so, because his American card catalog was printed twice, but the prices didn't change. It was just a copy. So basically, throughout the 1950s, if you wanted to find out what the price of your card was worth, you couldn't really go to the American card catalog um, because the prices were basically the same thing. You would have to go to Burdick's own publication at the time, and I think Bray was actually the editor of that. And so you did see some pricing material, new pricing material, which I actually did find for the T207s and T205s and the T206s, and that was basically 1957 or so, 56, and I think it was Lionel Carter who actually started to notice the prices of these things going up, and he wrote a pretty good article about that in 1957, I believe. Uh, my whole point about this is that when you do see values going up, that's when you see more fraud in the hobby, and um, the show bidding aspect is something I'm not really aware of up until I guess eBay starts. But um, you see a lot of show bidding in other industries, I guess, within the auction houses, and that's what I really want to kind of tell you guys about today because you can learn a lot from other um, I guess other industries that kind of spill over to the hobby. And this can be in the art world, it can be in coin collecting, it can be in, well, it can be in Atari, the Atari, right? So, um, what I think is really kind of interesting is, well, we'll start with this. Um, every every auction house has had stolen material. So when I was going to art school, I used to read two magazines. One was the Wall Street Journal, and the other one was the Boston Phoenix. And if you're not familiar with the Phoenix at all, it's kind of like your paper for the red light district. And in our case here in Boston, the red light district was your combat zone, which so it would be like Chinatown, and I think even downtown Crossing. And I do remember it, not fondly. Obviously, I thought it was a pretty scary place, but it was interesting, and a lot of people have a lot of uh, memories of the red light district here in Boston, and it has since been, I guess, re-gentrified, if you will. So you don't have it, but it's still it's just a weird place, nonetheless. Um, anyway, um, I had read this magazine quite often, and in one case I saw a 5-page spread uh, that their writers had done on um, stolen items ending up at auction, and this was the first time that I noticed that there was something really wrong with what was going on in Massachusetts. And at auction, it was, I don't think it's uh, local to Massachusetts. I think it's actually countrywide. And in fact, I actually think it's worldwide. I think this is a worldwide problem. And I'll discuss a little bit about that too. Um, what I thought was really interesting was that every museum in Massachusetts has been pilfered at least once, and this includes the State House and um, the Boston Public Library as well. and they did actually a really good job covering all of this. You had everything from the Charter of Massachusetts ending up at auction to documents of our founding fathers, which were at the State House, and you had some other items as well that have never turned up. Other items have turned up at auction, and I kind of asked myself, well, how did this occur? Like, what goes on where the auctioneer is not questioning where these items are? Are they not doing their homework? Um, and you have a lot of stolen artwork as well ending up at auction. But the problem here is that you don't really have, I guess, a lot of people who are, I should say, doing their homework on this stuff. Now, if artwork is, it's actually a little bit different. It's actually a lot different than baseball cards, except for the fact that a lot of baseball cards now are being considered as individual pieces of art, which I do understand that it's a very small piece of art. However, um, a lot of art now is, I think, being checked to see if it's has been stolen, and um, the there's no real penalty except if it's been stolen by the Nazis, and if it has been found out that any artwork has been stolen um, in the 1920s or 30s by the Nazis, and now ends up at auction, it's immediately returned, even if the person who purchased it at auction has it. There has been uh, litigation of the return of the artwork because it has been stolen by a group of individuals, the Nazis, who stole it from uh, other people. So usually in that case, even if it is legitimately purchased through an auction and it's found out to be stolen, it's going to be returned to the rightful owner. Uh, and so I think that's happened once in the hobby that I'm aware of during the Bill Mastro case, where a uh, a, a, a lawyer, his father, it was his father's collection that Bill Mastro stole, and he was able to prove it because he had before and after photos of the cards, and he wrote a letter to the judge, and the judge agreed, and he was able to get his uh, his cards back. However, there was, I guess, another case that I'm aware of too, which is maybe actually it's a little bit different, but back in 1972, uh, it looked like the Baseball Hall of Fame had some items that were stolen, and they didn't realize this until I think maybe like the late 70s, 1977, when Hank Thomas, the uh, the grandson of Walter Johnson, was taking a tour of uh, Cooperstown, and he noticed that his grandfather's opening day autographed presidential baseballs were missing, and he asked where they were. Now, the Hall of Fame actually didn't know where they were, and it was quite embarrassing. Um, and so um, years went by, and Hank Thomas is going through a Ron Osser auction catalog, and he sees his grandfather's baseballs, and he contacts Ron Osser auctions, and that's when like he notices like what is going on here. He was shocked. His mother was shocked as well, and they went about to um, prove that these were uh, stolen from the Hall of Fame, and that they need to be returned. The thing is that all but I think the Warren G. Harding baseball have been accounted for. and they were stolen in 1972 by uh, an employee who I believe sold them for $800. Now, um, the thing is, if you're an auction house, don't you have any questions? And then this is the thing is, you have to kind of figure where the stuff is coming from. I think in in my in my estimation, um, you have a few different, I guess, sources. The first one is that you have older ball players who are now deciding to sell off their material, their items to an auction, and they can vouch for everything that is being sold. And they usually do that with basically pen and paper, writing it down, right? So it's the one thing that a lot of people don't really kind of think about is what happens when a ball player ages or he passes away. If he ages and he doesn't want his material anymore, his memorabilia, they are going to go to an auction house. And I have no problem with this. Um, I think Bob Cousy actually sold his memorabilia to pay for his grandkids' college, and I think that's a great thing. Um, and I think in talking to Frank Malzone of the Red Sox, he was the third baseman back in the 1950s and early 60s. He had said to me that he just didn't want any of his stuff anymore because he was getting older, and none of his family members wanted it either. And it it um it kind of bothered him that he had all this stuff and he wasn't really interested in it anymore. But he also wanted to make sure that his family had some cash as well. And so um, you also have other instances where, say, in Connie Mack's last will and testament, where that was stolen from its direct source. Now, there's actually two copies of his last will and testament. Um, I believe his family had a copy, and the coroner's office had a copy, and it was stolen from the coroner's office. And it was it's actually kind of a sad thing, and this has happened more than once to a lot of other ball players and famous figures, where their documents are being stolen from government agencies, government sources, such as the coroner's office, um, and these things have ended up at auction, and so this is where I really kind of think that the auctioneers have a a liability, um, and they need to start really kind of questioning where the stuff is coming from as well. Now, if a ball player goes to the auction house, that's one thing, and you can basically um, do a you can trace the source, but a lot of the stuff you can't. And there's there's been times too where dealers have received stolen goods and merchandise. Um, Al Rosen has been questioned. I know he's passed on now. I knew Al Rosen for a good chunk of my life. Um, and I've talked to him extensively over the years when he was alive, and he always said to me, "If you ever write about me, I'll sue you." And so he can't sue me anymore. He can't threaten me with suing. And yeah, this is how he treats his friends. And anyway, uh, Al Rosen actually received a T206 Wagner. He had offered $18,000 for it, which is a very lowball offer. And I think he knew that the item was stolen. There's actually, I believe, Charlie Sheen's copy of the T206 Wagner that was stolen from the All Star Cafe, and the FBI got involved. And from what I've heard, is that the FBI has questioned not only Al Rosen several times, but Joe Orlando and a few others on this stuff. and not all for bad reasons. But the FBI does question a lot of these people, and a lot of these people, like Rob Lipson of REA, have gone in on investigations into stolen merchandise and stolen cards and memorabilia, which is it's a decent thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. If you know that something is stolen or you believe that something is stolen, you can back it up, then by all means. But you can't really, or you shouldn't, um, uh, say that something is stolen, even um, if you think it is. You need proof of that, and this is really where um, show bidding is very kind of difficult to prove. I think it may be more easier now because of electronic resources such as eBay, which I think can use a tracker. There are ways to do this. Um, I don't think they're being utilized correctly, and I think there are reasons for that. I don't want to really go into those reasons. Um, Even if I'm a reporter, I still need proof for I can't really kind of go on my own hunches. Sometimes I will, but I'll back up my hunches with actual proof. Um, I do think that shill bidding is a problem. I don't think it's such as a problem at live auctions anymore. Um, I first started going to live auctions when I was a teenager, thumbing rides, before I had a car. My first auction experience was with a place called Hall's Nostalgia in Arlington, Massachusetts, and it was really kind of an education for me. It was really an eye-opening experience, and I did get a lot of really decent, um, a lot of really decent vintage stuff that I normally would never have gotten otherwise. Um, you never know what's going to happen in an auction. To tell you the truth, it's not like an eBay auction at all. Um, you have to sign in, and they give you a number, and then you raise your hand every time you want to bid, and you have like an hour preview for the stuff that you want, and then what I like to do is kind of like go through the catalog or whatever, and I have one, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. All right, so what I have here is an auction catalog from Hall's Nostalgia, and this is obviously you can see January 1st, 2003, and it was the personal collection of Ken Coleman. I had actually he was there, and so I had him autograph this, and I went over to him and asked him, and I swear I thought he was gonna kill me. I've never really been one to be intimidated, but he did intimidate me, and I'm not sure. I really didn't feel very comfortable after that. I was like, oh my god, I should probably sit down and shut up. But he was there, and this is a really interesting thing. I did actually make a few purchases from this, and I was actually very surprised because there was a lot of people there. Um, and so I'll show you the back of this. Actually, it looks like this. And Halls was around for a long time. I think they were the first card store in Massachusetts, in fact, and Walter Hall started it. And Walter Hall is a World War II veteran, and he was kind of a really neat guy. I did enjoy going to Hall's Nostalgia quite a bit, and David and Joel were I believe they took over for their father, but they did have a lot of great stuff there, and it was like I say, it was an education for me. And so as I go through this, I'm just going to show you what they had and what it looked like. And well, okay, so it looks like this, and and so um, I was really surprised about what was in this catalog, and the descriptions of all the material. You obviously know where this material came from because the gentleman who was selling it was there. I don't know if that's true with all auction houses. I kind of doubt it. But let me actually let me show you what I picked up from this auction. Um, the first one is I believe it's a not a scorecard, but it's a card that the the manager the managers would fill out, and this was by McNamara, the Red Sox manager. Um, and if you're from Boston, you know who McNamara was. Um, and so right off the bat, like, I know all these ball players. Uh, Leading off, um, Ellis Burks, Marty Barrett, Wade Boggs, Mike Greenwald, Dwight Evans, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Um, you have Sam Horn, um, Henderson. I'm not sure who Henderson is. I'm not sure who Oliver is. Uh, and Al Nipper and somebody else who I'm not sure who is second baseman. Mart Martinez. No, I'm not sure. This is from um, August 25th, 1987. Anyway, I thought that was really kind of cool. There was a lot of stuff that I could not get my hands on. It was way too much money. But I did pick up this right here, and for all you football fans, this is a personal letter dated January 24th, 1989, by Paul Brown. And Paul Brown is probably one of my favorite football coaches of all time. He's obviously a legend in football, and he has the 1952 Bowman, which I highly recommend for any football card collector. It is a really nice card, um, and obviously Paul Brown was named after, or the Browns were named after Paul Brown as being their first coach, and I think he really did a lot to help start the franchise. So that's that. um, the funny thing is about auction houses or auction theft, is that I had spoke to um a few people, in fact, a few higher ups in this state house, and in my local politician here, about theft, and they were kind of surprised, but not really. But they didn't really want to look into any of this stuff. It was kind of beyond them, and they have other, I guess, more important things to do with their time. I can see, okay, maybe, but this is our cultural heritage. Even sports is America's cultural heritage. And so you are the proprietor of this material, whether it be sports contracts or other items, or in the case of the State House, that's where you have a lot of the personal papers and other effects of our founding fathers. Massachusetts being a state that has a lot of founding fathers in it, and a lot of their material in the State House. And my question was, how safe is this stuff here? Is it stored properly? And obviously, being 200 to 150 years old or more, this stuff needs to be stored in a climate controlled, temperature acclimated room, or space. And I don't think that's the case. um, it's worth quite a bit to collectors, and so stuff has been taken out of the state house, and I don't think all of it has been returned. Um, and that was probably the point of the Boston Phoenix. And it wasn't just stuff from the state house that's been stolen and ended up at auction, because some of these auction houses had stuff from the state house all the way in California. And one day I was walking through the Boston Public Library and I noticed that there was um, a Nobel Prize just sitting there, and with no glass covered or anything. And I thought to myself, how easy would that be just to put in your pocket and take off? It's a small thing. It's it's still kind of light, and it's I think those things are worth quite a bit of money. However, trying to find a seller is going to be difficult, and I actually kind of wonder if some of the stuff is being sold on the black market as well as ending up at auction. Obviously, I don't think we're going to find out who stole the paintings from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in my lifetime. I would love to find out who did that. I think we have a very good educated guess on the people who were involved, and they're all passed away now. Um, however, and I've told you guys about that before. I was actually there 2 days before it happened, and I did see those paintings, and it was amazing. Those paintings are amazing. And they do have like copies of what they look like, but it does not do it justice. The original paintings, um, and it's the same thing with sports cards in a way. Uh, you can see a sports card on eBay or on the internet, but it's not going to be the same thing as actually seeing it in your hand. Um, it's the experience is going to be completely different, and that's the way I felt when I saw those paintings at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and in the case of the Nobel Prize as well. Um, and that's one of the things that I think if you're a collector, you're gonna understand eventually. Uh, in any event, there there was a gentleman a couple of years ago who was stealing maps from the map room of, I believe it's the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and or the Boston Public Library. The two of them kind of get confusing sometimes for me because they're both really kind of museums. Um, and I want to say it's the Museum of Fine Arts. However, this gentleman was rolling up maps, and he had um, a whole device for smuggling these things out of the museum, and he didn't get caught until much later on. But it was just kind of out of sheer carelessness. Now, I think the museum last did their audit back in 1986, so they didn't keep up with the times. And between those two times, and this is also true with um, the Baseball Hall of Fame and probably other Hall of Fames too. We just maybe not know um, that they didn't check. They didn't know. Now the Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, it took them about 5 years, and it was embarrassing when they did basically have to admit that they were um, that some of their items were gone. Now there are other incidences too where museums have to sell their items, and the thing is, with the exception of art museums, most museums are underfunded, especially natural history museums. Uh, and anybody who's working in a natural history museum or a museum in general can tell you just how underfunded some of these places are, um, and the security systems as well. When I was at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, when I was a kid, before before those paintings were stolen. I distinctly remembered the guard, and he looked like he just came out of a trash barrel. He was it was amazing. It was something that I never forgot, and um, some of the um, kids were mentioning that as well, and the FBI had questioned him quite extensively, and they always thought it was kind of strange. But if they cleared him, okay, you know, um, I'm all about proof, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But the thing, what I'm trying to get at here is that um, some of these museums are not up to snuff. They're not up to standards of keeping these things safe.